So I'm back. I made it home. Didn't try putting it in any ditches. Kept the rubber side down. Kept it safe. And now I talk to you guys again. So who's going to join me? Oh, by the way, I can read your email, your chats again. Because I'm home. Well, y'all, anybody coming to join this? If you do, I'm Neil. And yeah, I like talking. So whoever wants to talk to me, say hello. Say so I can see your name. And yeah, ask questions and expect answers if I have them. Oh. Hello, hello, whoever you are. Welcome to my live stream. Say hello. Oh, I better pull these on. Hey, Jonathan Ritter. How are you? Welcome to my live stream. And dark web. So where are you guys from? I appreciate you popping in for a visit. Those are our new names. Mitchell, hello. I'm pretty good myself. I just finished a 10-hour day, 4.5 of which were highway hours. You're in my closet. Oh no. Oh, why are you in my closet, Gojo? You played golf? Oh, that poor little white ball. I live right at the border between Minnesota, northern Minnesota, and Ontario. From Algeria. Uh-huh. Well, not quite the USA. I'm in Canada. And Mitchell's from Australia, the land down under. With all the ruse and the superheat. Mitchell, to be honest with you, I've enjoyed watching a series that was shot in your country, Outback Truckers. Uh-huh. So dark web. Algeria. That, if I remember correctly, Algeria is along the northern shore of Africa on the Mediterranean. Am I correct? Of course, Savannah Jones, Jesus does love me. He's my brother. We have the same Father. And Algeria is where a lot of the Sahara Desert is located, if my geography also serves my memory of my geography serves me correct. Now that has got to be one hot country, Algeria. What do the temperatures get to? 45 on a regular basis? I doubt it. Their hand. Yeah. Uh-huh. Oh, I know that, Jesus is not God. He is the Son of God. But he is part of, he was there with God. But if you are a Muslim, then you should at least be aware of your history that Muhammad, studied or spent many, 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 many years with the monks at Mount Sinai, and it was after that he wrote the Quran. So he learned about Jesus. He learned about God there, and then wrote the Quran. Well, you're entitled to your belief there, Dark Web, and I'm entitled to mine. So we'll leave it at that. Okay? You're not going to argue with me. You're not going to make change my mind. You have your beliefs. I have mine. What was I going to say about what they're nourished? Abso-fucking-lutely, the Quran copied the Bible. And if you can't live with that, you can leave. Oh, I know my religion's been distorted for a very long time, and so is yours. So, welcome to the club. Because the religious leaders, they need to, trick us to thinking that we need those religious leaders in order to understand what is written. And, that we have to give them money to be has homage for what they are sharing with us. And that's absolutely false. Jesus came to call us into a relationship with the Heavenly Father, who you call Allah. And it doesn't require rituals of praying. It doesn't require, rituals of praying. I mean, the Catholics pray to saints. Muslims get down on their knees, at a certain time of the day, and they face Mecca and they pray. the you know it's not required. It's what it requires is that we are have our minds open to hear when the Father speaks to us. I have read through the Quran once. I don't know, nourished. I guess they didn't like what I said about the Quran. Uh huh. Yes, he did. Dark web, the Quran is not the only solution. Okay? Like I said, you're entitled to your opinion, I'm entitled to mine. And nourished, knock it off. Conversation, or you're going to get the same thing as dark web. Why would I not follow Jesus' genuine question? Um, who says I'm not? Jesus summarized, the all the books or all the writings of the Old Testament that the Hebrews followed in two sentences. And that was to love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. When you learn what exactly loving yourself and loving your neighbor mean, that's all you need. Unfortunately, the Muslims have twisted that because they think they are the only ones that have the true answer, just like the Christians did back in the Crusades. Now the Muslims are doing it the same thing 700 years later. Oh, son of a gun! The Quran was written about 500 years after Christ, so it's pretty much on point with when in the evolution of religion, pretty much right on point with what the Christians did as far as the number of years. You get radical assholes in there that think that they know their understanding of their religion is the only way, true way. No. I'm not arguing about, that the Quran is any less true or more true than anything else. But, if you don't acknowledge the history of the Quran, then you're missing, the core foundation of the origin. The books of the Bible that we read now, that have been translated from the Latin Vulgate, which was created or translated, and I use that word translated very loosely, by the Roman Catholic Church in the late 400s AD, right about the time that Muhammad was in the Sinai monastery, is when the Latin Vulgate was written. There were key passages that were altered. The one is in the book written by Paul to one that I can point out to you real easy is the first verse of the 13th chapter of Romans. It was a letter written by the Apostle Paul to the believers in Rome. And in order to understand it, Paul was incarcerated by the Roman Emperor Caesar for not doing what he was told, and that he was told that he was to stop preaching Christianity throughout the empire. And Paul basically gave, Caesar the middle finger and, told him to F off. So Caesar arrested him and threw him in jail. Okay, so that's one thing we know about Paul. He was committed to spreading and preaching the gospel of Christ. Okay, that's his character. That's what he did. And he wasn't going to stop just because, some earthly king declared that he must stop. So why would a man that by action defied the government of his day be the one to write a verse that says, "Let every man be subject to governing authority," and go on with, "All authority comes from God, and those who disobey the authority disobey God"? Wait a minute. He does one thing and says another. But that's not a man of integrity. A man of integrity does and says the same thing. He will not change. Okay? And Paul was a man of integrity. He was filled with Christ, filled with, the power and the Spirit of God. God worked in his life. So, good evening. I can't read your name now. Ephemet. So something went wrong there. His words and his actions do not coincide. So if you go back and you read the original text, which has been found on the Dead Sea Scrolls, long after, the Roman Catholic Church, they were buried, in about 100, and they were found again in 1960 something. So, those scrolls have the original Greek words on them. Okay? And the original Greek says, "Karsuke hupotasso hupo echo exousia." When you translate it, it basically tells us that that our psyche, our inner being, is to strive in excellence in defending and promoting liberty. Because exousia is never government. Exousia is a word that was used by Plato, Socrates, and Aristotle before the time of Christ. And it always, always, always was liberty. So when the Pope Innocent III, who was the one that, created the Latin Vulgate, had that done, it's because he went to every ruler in the, Roman kingdom or where there were, Christian or Catholic churches. Okay? He went to all those rulers and said, "I will give you subservient subjects because I can make them, believe that your power comes from God." And that's how he did it. And that was preached from the pulpit since, basically 500 AD on. And today, every person on the in Christian-based or Christian-related countries believe that, the power of the government comes from God. The power of government and all government is Satan. Absolutely. Because, when Jesus went to the desert and was tempted by Satan, one of the things he was offered was all the kingdoms of the world. And Jesus said no. Because he wasn't a king like the king of, the other kingdoms. Just, but Christians who do not take the time to open their mind, to open their hearts, and to listen to the holy breath of God. Because it's not the Holy Spirit. What's been translated Holy Spirit comes from the words Hagios Pneuma. Now, anybody that's worked around air tools knows that they're also called pneumatic tools or pneumatic tools. Pneuma, air. Okay? Holy air, the holy breath of God. Listen. God will breathe intelligence into you, but you gotta stop eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil like Adam and Eve did. And that got them kicked out of Eden. You've got to start eating from the tree of life, the breath of God. Then you will then you will get. So who do I have left here? I know one of the two that are in the chat is my my other channel. just because I can read the comments a lot better on my computer, so I log in with my other channel. Oh. Yeah. So, Pat, you know, hey, Marcus Aurelius, Julius Caesar for president. Yeah, he'd probably be better than a lot of the men that have held that seat. Um, the funny thing is, so many of the presidents and rulers around the world, they claim they go to church and that they're God-fearing men. But I'll tell you one thing. Going to a church on Sunday and parking your ass in a pew does not make you a Christian. Because if that was true, I could park my ass in a garage and I'd be a car. Right? Or stick a hose in my pocket and I'd be a vacuum cleaner. But I'm not. Being a Christian, a true follower of Christ, a beloved child of God, does not mean that you go to church every Sunday, at least once, or do, as a Catholic, your Easter duty or Christmas duty. It's how you live your life, day in, day out. Yep. And prayer rituals do not make you any better. As a Muslim, Pax, I'm sure you do the prayer ritual. In many places around the world, there's a group of people called Mennonites, and that they think that by doing rituals and self-sacrifice and dressing a certain way, it makes them holy. What it does is make them look foolish, appear set apart. But Jesus told us, do not do anything out of custom or superstition. When you are truly in your faith, it's not about doing rituals. It is about living the core tenets of your faith. Now, I've read the Quran, and I know that there are at the end, the message changed to one of violence and jihad. Any religion that promotes violence against anyone else, I have a problem with. Because if your God and my God are the same God, then your God and my God would be the same and want love only. So wires got crossed between Allah, God, and the people, and the only thing in between is the messenger. Correct? That's why, I acknowledge that there are flaws in the Bible, because the words that are in the books now have been altered to trick us. Not by God, but by the working of Satan in the people who hijacked Christianity for their own benefit. Okay? The leaders of the Roman Catholic Church. That is the single richest entity in the world. Okay? They have wealth beyond measure. You can disagree all you want. That's my opinion. Okay? But I want you to think about what I said there, Pax. Okay? A religion that promotes violence against any other religion, I don't think is healthy for the world. Right? If you read if you read the first part of the Quran, when he wrote the first section, then you'll understand that he was basically, being a new prophet, or of faith, or of love, care, compassion, and charity. Mm-hmm. But did you notice that there was a turn in the violence after Israel was established? Okay? After Israel was established, okay, as a theocratic country, and up until they got a ruler, a king of their own, when they were a theocratic country, they were not violent. Who could not read or write? Muhammad? Yep. Well, Pax, we're going to disagree. The Crusades in the late 1200s, early 1300s, that was the Roman Catholic Church, and not so much the Roman Catholic Church, I think, as the Anglican Church, the Church of England. That carried out the atrocities of that time on the Arabic states when they marched down to Jerusalem. He dictated it. Same difference, Pax. Same difference. That's semantics. Yep. How do I know how God wants me to live my life? Simple. He wants me to live my life in service to Him, in recognition that He is in my life, and I want people to see how good my Father is to me through how I treat other people. Right? Isn't that a simple uh, uh, you know, premise. I live to honor my father, and I don't care what you say. That is true in your religion as well. You know, honor in families is paramount in Muslim culture. Because I've heard about what they do when a girl dishonors her family, or a young man dishonors his family. It's bye bye. You're done, gone. You're a blight on our family. You're no longer in the family, and that can include complete disappearance. Well, I'm sharing my opinions. You're sharing your opinions. Okay, so we can agree to disagree. Yep. True alpha, absolutely. God created mankind to not worship him, but to honor him. Worship is it just has, in our culture, our day and age, that word worship has come to mean something else. Okay? Hello, Lynn Life. Lynn Life, I think I know you. I've seen your channel, if I remember correctly. Let me see. Filipina? Yes, Lynn Life is a Filipina. If you're still here, thank you for stopping by. Okay. What's not true to Alpha? That the on or dishonoring your family. Yep. Yeah, I agree, Pax. I mean, you're sharing your opinion. Of course, I do not know the Quran nearly as well as I know the Bible. I have not done as deep a study on it, and um, I'm not going to claim that I have, or do I intend to do a deep dive on the Quran. I'm having enough, struggle getting through the Bible because routinely, I'm looking at verses and um, having to put away the what I was taught by the institutional religion of churches for the first 40 years of my life, because I'm being shown how just how little things that have been changed have pushed me off course. Uh, True. If it doesn't pass on facts, it's an opinion. I absolutely agree. But that's the thing about the Bible. How can we have a factual, because there's what, 40 some thousand different churches, and they all claim to read the same Bible. So how can there be so many differences with the same foundation? Something, there's got to be some reason, and it comes down to this: it's how the Bible is interpreted. And they infant baptism versus adult baptism is a big one. Okay. Okay, Pax, you have a good night. It's 7:50. I can't even read the time here. 7:51 p.m. for me. So, yeah. You have a good sleep. Thank you for the conversation. Take care. Oh. Oh. Oh, we got somebody else joined in here. Or back in. It can't be zero because I know I've got YouTube's lying to me. It says I've got 0 people in the chat. And here, the chat actually stopped. Many, many, many chats back. It's a good thing I've got my other channel up, because I can see the stream and see all the chats. So, we got anybody else in here that wants to say something? Yes. True Alpha, that is why I continue to do my research. But I don't initiate when I'm going to do it, because I've learned that something will trigger when I need to look at a verse. And I know that when that happens, it's God giving me a nudge. He says it's time for a new nugget, a new piece of wisdom, so you can understand me better. You're ready for the next one. Knowledge is power, and God has given us the mind to exactly. But we have to be willing to seek Him out. Because if we continue only getting our knowledge of God from a pulpit every Sunday morning, it's like trying to follow a compass that has been altered by a half a degree. It will always point you half a degree off of where you should be going. And the longer you go in life following that compass that's pointing the wrong way, the farther away from your destination you will go. The Bible, the way modern Christians follow it, will lead them to a gate of what they believe will be heaven. And they will have paid the church millions and millions and millions of dollars, to follow that compass. And it'll look like a narrow gate, but it's wide. It's a big gate. The gate that God has for those who truly dig into his word and ask God for the teaching rather than, the church for the teaching. The path is barely discernible. You have to watch for the sign, and the signs are not as visible as you think, as some people think they are going to be, because Satan tries to obscure those signs. He tries to hide them. He tries to tear them down. But God will come, and he won't just, put up a new sign. He'll come and take you by the hand, or he'll point your head in your eyes in the direction that you need to look to see the next marker. And then he says, follow me. And like, this is the direction you got to go now. And if you look really closely and follow what he's teaching, you'll follow the path that will lead to the gate. And I'm looking forward to finding that gate. And hopefully it's not in the next, few years. I have a lot yet to learn, but as I learn, I share. Right? I'm not going to give you all the nuggets that I have found, but I will share with you the ones that were monumental in me reevaluating what I was following. Because modern religion, another good one is, with the modern Bible, modern church, is, and apparently this started around 1100. The Catholic Church, it was before the Reformation, so there was only the one church. The Catholic Church decided, that they would be the record keeper of marriages, and that they would solemnize the marriage. Anybody that any two, man and woman that wanted to be married, right? Husband and wife, they now had to be approved by the church, right? And sign a marriage register. And, over time, it came to mean that marriage meant you stood before a preacher or a pastor or a priest or a rabbi or whatever, and you said your words, and they said you're married. And then they go off and, do the Humpty Humpty, and, hopefully 9 months later there's a baby. Or, you get the idea. But if you read the Bible, it doesn't say that. I mean, in the first book of the Bible, it doesn't say that you gotta, it says, for this reason, a man shall leave his father and his mother, and he shall be united with his wife, and the two shall become one. Period. Good example of that is where Rebecca is brought back by Abraham's servant to be the wife of Isaac. She arrives on the camel, sees Isaac in the field, dismounts, and goes to him. They meet for the first time, and Isaac takes Rebekah to his mother's tent, and they were married. Who was in the tent? Was the preacher in there? The rabbi. He was Jewish. It had to be the rabbi. And how about the people from the city, as witnesses to the marriage. In Sarah's tent? I don't think so. I think there were only two people in that tent, Isaac and Rebecca. And they did the boom boom, as the Filipinos like to say. True Alpha, absolutely. Absolutely. You need to ask God for guidance. But, this marriage thing is a second place where, religion, institutional religion, has deceived us. A man and a woman are married the minute they are engaged in conjugal relations. That is marriage. So when you hear a preacher or anybody tell you that, oh, it's a sin to have sex before marriage, I tell you this. God didn't say, it's a sin to have sex before marriage. God told us that sex is marriage. And even the church and the government recognize that fact. Because if you do not have sex after you do their paperwork, they'll grant you an annulment. Which basically means the marriage didn't happen. The paperwork is of no consequence. It is stricken from the record because you did not conjugate your relationship. Oh, so as much as they want to preach, don't have sex before marriage, they're lying to you. Right? You can use their own paperwork, their own rules, to prove that they're lying to you. Because they didn't, it's not the truth. It's Satan's twist of God's truth. And he's that's the story of the world since Adam and Eve ate of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Right? Because they wanted to have they thought they would have the wisdom of God. Yet there's, a bunch of, I'm going to call them clowns, that go off for 3 to 5 years to be taught by men who were taught by men who were taught by men, and on and on and on, about the, holiness of God. They call the place a seminary. I call it a cemetery, because the two words actually come from the same root. Which book do I follow? I follow the Bible, but I ask God to show me where the errors are, because there are errors. But his message, if you go for the simple part of the message, is love God and love your neighbor. Love your neighbor as yourself. Well, that's a loaded question, Kev. A very loaded question. The real Bible or the fake one? In order to read the real Bible, I would have to break into the Vatican and access the scrolls, the original scrolls that were used to create the Latin Vulgate. That is the real Bible. Because when the Latin Vulgate was created or translated from, the Greek and the Hebrew texts, that is when so many verses were changed. And every translation that you look at that comes off of that continues to propagate falsities. No, I do not, read the Ethiopian Bible. Um, I read, I read an English Bible. I'll read the King James, the NIV, many different versions, and I compare them. But when I do the comparison, I also load in the Greek. Okay, the original Greek with the translation. Okay, so it's and they're available online, which is just modern day Christianity. Churches, absolutely. I call modern day Christianity a multi-billion-dollar industry trying to sell you to a roadmap to a place that you are. Not a place that you can be. I am the church. I am heaven. In that, knowing my Father, I have peace. Who didn't speak Hebrew? You're off your freaking rocker if you think he didn't speak Hebrew. He was Jewish. He grew up in Galilee. That was their language. Or Sanskrit. No. No, the Ethiopian Bible is not. I'm for Christ. The Old Testament was written in Hebrew. Most of the letters written by Paul were written in Greek, the language of, it was written in the language of the people that were the recipients of his letters. Yeah, Jesus spoke Aramaic. That's true. So are you telling me the Ethiopian Bible is written originally in Aramaic, including the letters of Paul? I doubt it. But you know what? I'll investigate. Maybe this is my new nugget. Well, I think I'm going to wrap this one off for the night. Well, Kev, I'm going to, investigate. I'm open, to learning new things. I never claim to know it all. And any person that does claim to know it all is lying. Okay, guys, thank you for coming, sharing your time, sharing your thoughts. I appreciate it. Kev, William, have a great night, afternoon, day, whatever the case may be. God bless. Take care.